Welcome everyone to our deep dive on cybersecurity in the age of remote work. Since 2020, millions have shifted to working from home, but with this convenience comes a host of new security challenges. Can you give us a snapshot of how remote work has changed the cybersecurity landscape worldwide?
Absolutely. The global transition to remote work has essentially dissolved traditional network boundaries. Organizations now face threats from every corner of the world as employees log in from home networks, coffee shops, or even overseas. This shift has forced IT teams to rethink how they secure data, manage devices, and respond to incidents.
So, it's not just a matter of moving laptops out of the office, it's a complete restructuring of how we approach digital security. What are some of the first vulnerabilities that emerged during this transition?
Great question. One immediate issue was the sudden reliance on remote desktop protocols and cloud collaboration tools, many of which weren't configured with security in mind. Attackers quickly exploited these gaps, leading to a surge in phishing and ransomware attacks.
Building on that, ransomware incidents skyrocketed during the remote work boom. I've read that North America saw a 158% increase between 2019 and 2020. What factors drove this dramatic escalation?
Several factors converged. First, attackers exploited unpatched systems and unsecured home routers. Second, as companies rushed to enable remote access, some overlooked basic security hygiene. For instance, weak or reused passwords became easy entry points for hackers.
It seems like attackers took advantage of both technical and human weaknesses. Were there particular industries or regions that were more heavily targeted during this period?
Healthcare and education were hit especially hard due to their sensitive data and, often, limited IT resources. North America, with its high remote work adoption rate, became a prime target, but Europe and Asia weren't spared either.
As we dig deeper, let's talk about sophisticated threats. State-sponsored actors, like North Korean operatives, have reportedly infiltrated Western IT departments. How do these advanced persistent threats exploit remote work environments?
State actors employ multifaceted tactics such as spear phishing, identity theft, and social engineering. In remote setups, it's easier to impersonate employees or contractors, blending into digital workflows. Once inside, they stealthily exfiltrate data or disrupt operations for months before detection.
That's alarming. Are organizations able to detect these breaches quickly? Or do the attackers often remain undetected for extended periods?
Unfortunately, detection can take months. A 2023 study found the average time to identify a breach was nearly 200 days. Remote work complicates detection further, as traditional network monitoring tools may not cover home-based endpoints.
Shifting gears, human factors are just as crucial as technology. Studies show 44% of cybersecurity professionals report severe work-related stress. How does this stress influence security practices among remote workers?
Stress can be a silent threat. Overwhelmed employees are more likely to overlook suspicious emails or ignore security updates. Fatigue clouds judgment, making them vulnerable to tactics like phishing. Imagine a tired worker clicking a malicious link just to clear their inbox.
That analogy really highlights the risk. Are organizations doing enough to support their teams and mitigate these psychological stressors?
Support varies widely. Some companies have introduced mental health resources and flexible schedules, but many still lack structured support systems. The bottom line is that an overworked staff is an underdefended organization.
Insider threats are another growing concern. Research suggests that negligence rather than malice is often the primary cause of breaches. How do home environments contribute to this trend?
Remote settings blur the line between personal and professional life. Employees might use unsecured devices, share work computers with family, or multitask during sensitive operations. All of these scenarios increase the risk of accidental data leaks.
So, even well-meaning employees can inadvertently create vulnerabilities. Are there effective ways to reduce these accidental breaches without micromanaging staff?
Absolutely. Regular, scenario-based training and clear, simple security protocols empower employees to make safer choices. Encouraging a culture of accountability without blame helps, too.
Turning to solutions, zero trust architecture is gaining traction. For listeners unfamiliar with the term, could you explain how zero trust works in practice? especially for remote teams?
Zero Trust operates on never trust, always verify. This means every user and device, regardless of location, must prove their identity and authorization before accessing resources. Think of it as airport security. You're screened every time, not just once.
That's a helpful analogy. Implementing zero trust must require significant changes. What are some practical challenges organizations face when adopting this model?
Integration with legacy systems and user resistance are big hurdles. Companies must update infrastructure, retrain staff, and sometimes overhaul workflows. However, the payoff is much stronger protection against both external and internal threats.
Let's explore endpoint protection and secure remote access. What makes these layers of defense so vital for remote work, and how do tools like VPNs fit in?
Endpoints, laptops, tablets, smartphones are the new front lines. Antivirus software, firewalls, and patch management help shield devices from malware. VPNs, meanwhile, encrypt data in transit, turning public Wi-Fi into a safer space, much like sending sealed letters instead of postcards.
Are there limitations to VPNs that organizations should be aware of?
Certainly, VPNs can be slow or overloaded, and if credentials are stolen, attackers can still gain access. That's why they're best combined with other controls like multi-factor authentication and endpoint monitoring.
Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is another frequently recommended safeguard. Can you break down how MFA works and why it's especially important for remote work?
MFA requires users to provide 2 or more proofs of identity, like a password and a fingerprint, or a code sent to a phone. Even if a hacker steals your password, they'd still need the second factor. This greatly reduces the risk of unauthorized access, especially with employees working from diverse locations.
Are there drawbacks or user experience issues with MFA that organizations should consider?
Some users find MFA inconvenient, and if not implemented correctly, it can disrupt workflows. However, the security benefits far outweigh the downsides, and most modern MFA solutions are designed for ease of use.
We've discussed technical defenses, but human awareness is just as important. What does effective cybersecurity training look like for a remote workforce?
Effective training is ongoing and interactive. It includes regular phishing simulations, clear guidelines on spotting scams, and role-based scenarios. The goal is to build habits, not just deliver information. For example, a recent MIT study found that hands-on, scenario-driven training improved threat detection by 60%.
That's a significant improvement. How can organizations ensure that training translates into lasting behavioral change?
Leadership must model good security behavior, and feedback loops like debriefs after incidents reinforce lessons. Recognizing employees for reporting threats also encourages vigilance.
Let's wrap up with organizational policies. Incident response plans, regulatory compliance, and third-party risks have all become more complex with remote work. What are the key elements organizations need to address?
A robust incident response plan should specify roles, communication channels, and recovery steps. Regular drills help teams respond quickly. Compliance-wise, remote work complicates data protection, so regular audits and clear policies are vital. Third-party vendors must be assessed rigorously, as they can introduce vulnerabilities.
Can you share an example of a company that managed these aspects well, perhaps turning a security challenge into a strength?
Absolutely. One global financial firm implemented continuous vendor monitoring and quarterly response drills. When a supplier was breached, their team isolated affected systems within hours, preventing data loss and regulatory penalties.
Looking ahead, remote work isn't going away. What emerging trends or technologies should organizations focus on to stay ahead of evolving threats?
AI-driven threat detection, biometric authentication, and decentralized identity management are advancing rapidly. Also, adaptive security frameworks that adjust based on user behavior will become standard. The key is ongoing adaptation. Cyber threats evolve, so defenses must, too.
That's a fitting note to end on constant vigilance and adaptation. Thank you for your insights and for helping us navigate the complex landscape of remote work cybersecurity.
Thank you for having me. With the right mix of technology, training, and policies, organizations can not only survive, but thrive in the new era of remote work.